Hello and welcome to this channel. My name is Jade. I'm a child sleep expert, mum of two, and founder of the S.L.E.E.P Success Method. So today I'm going to talk you through my method, my framework, which has been designed to keep things really simple for parents when it comes to their child's sleep. When sleep starts to fall apart or feels disconnected, it can be really toughest to know exactly where to focus on. And this is what we're going to talk about today. So the framework itself, S stands for sleep pressure. L stands for looking at the signs, which is external things that can be going on in our little ones' lives, developmental leaps, a lot of things that we can't overly control. E stands for environments. The second E stands for evaluating sleep props. So that's where we dive into more sleep associations. Are there parts of their settle that are potentially disconnecting the sleep? And P stands for planning your goals. So anytime that sleep starts to feel misaligned for you, you can come back to this framework, work through it, and know exactly which bits that you need to focus on. Okay, let's dive into the first E of the framework, where we're going to talk about environments. So let me cover the really quick basics first of what their sleep environment looks like. Now, this is something we think about quite often in the earlier months as well, but it can change as they get older. So yes, we want to have an environment which is mostly dark. So if we're struggling in months, we want to consider a blackout blind. You can get some really great sticky on ones that come down again in the winter, helps prevent those early rises. And yeah, we don't need it to be 100% dark, but we want it to be mostly dark, and that helps their melatonin production. We don't produce melatonin in the day. They don't actually need to nap in the dark for that reason, but they do it for the nights. Now, we also might see a bit of a change in their preference in how they fall asleep. Now, quite often we either need a night light, maybe you're feeding still in the night, or depending on what your responses might be, or quite often toddlers one day decide that they're scared of the dark when they weren't the day before. That's not to say that the fear isn't real. Their anxieties quite often are real, but we might want to consider any change in environments. So I always recommend, if you're using a nightlight, to pick one which is red, amber. This doesn't impact their melatonin through the night. Picking lights which are sort of brighter whites or blues can impact their melatonin. Now, it's not to say that they won't fall asleep with it, but it can impact how deep a sleep they stay in overnight. Now, every time I do a toddler workshop, and say this because there's some brands out there which are predominantly blue, sleep-wake clocks, that kind of thing, somebody always comes back to me and goes, "Oh my goodness, turning off that blue light was the best thing we've ever done." So I hand on heart promise you, it can really relate to a lot of kids. So pick your lights wisely. Now, temperature is really important, especially in the winter, because what happens is that quite often our heating is on a sort of timer system or a thermostat system. So it comes on at different points of the night. Now, if there's not much heating on for the beginning part of the night, but it automatically kicks in at 3-4 o'clock in the morning, and there's a sudden shift in temperature, this can be enough to knock them out of sleep, because our bodies are in a naturally cool state when we're in really deep sleep. So a sudden change in temperature can actually knock them out of deep sleep. So have a think about how you can keep that temperature more consistent overnight. Like I said, especially in the colder months, depending on where you are in the world. So that's our basics around environments. But essentially what we also want is to keep their sleep environment as consistent as possible. So, for example, where they fall asleep, where they wake up, where they resettle for sleep, is ideally all in the same space, because predictability helps their secure attachments, it helps them feel safe, feel secure, and that's ultimately what we want. Now, you might be listening to this and going, "Well, do you know what? I co-sleep for part of the night." Totally fine. If co-sleeping's working for you, then keep doing what you're doing. And if you're very happy for one part of the night that they're in their own sleep space, and at some point when they wake up, they come to yours and everybody's sleeping, you don't need to change that. They already know that at some point they're going to get moved. So if that works for you, it works. If co-sleeping isn't working for you, and you're finding that at some point, whether that be at 4 or 5 a.m, where you're so tired you can't fight it anymore, they're coming into your space, even though you've battled most of the night to keep them in their own. You might want to start thinking about how we change that. Again, because that predictability is key. They don't know what time it is, so they don't know that at 4 o'clock it's okay for them to come in your bed. They just know that at some point it happens. So if it's not working for you, the best thing you can actually do for them is support them. It might even be that you co-sleep in their room, by keeping them in their own sleep space to help that predictability and helps your night wakes also. Because like I said, they don't know what time it is. So if they're waking up at midnight, they're like, okay, so am I moving yet? Like, are we doing this yet? And they don't know that difference. We only know the difference because we know what time it is and we know our tolerance levels. So try and keep things as consistent as possible. So as I mentioned in previous episodes, they're also become really aware of where they fall asleep, where they wake up from a very, very young age. And that can be before they even hit 4 months, which is quite scary that they know this when they're already so tiny. So if you've got a little one who is particularly sensitive to that difference, they're waking up as soon as their bum hits the cot, or they're waking up in such a fear or frustration of, how did I wake back up in here again when this isn't how I fell asleep, then we might want to start thinking about changing that up. This is going to be covered more in the next episode, so do not worry. But environments as a whole are really, really important. Napping on the go, I think it's a great thing. So it gives you flexibility in your day. There's no reason, like I said, that they need to nap in the dark. It just needs to work for everybody. If you know that they're maybe not taking as good a nap on the go, see where you can get a bit of flexibility. Can you get some in the cot, some on the go? So yeah, I think if napping on the go is working for you, please keep doing what you're doing. If you've got any questions, do reach out to me. I'm here to anytime. Again, you've got the frameworks and the links all here ready for you, but I'm here if you ever want to chat. You just need to reach out. I hope this helps, and I'll see you on the next episode.